welcome back to my channel. So today we're going to be talking all about harps in the orchestra. These are my tips on how to have a good time in the orchestra. So my private teacher really helped me a lot when I was starting orchestra, but I had so many more questions that I was honestly way too shy to ask her. And so if any of you are like me and you have questions and you just are too shy to ask someone for help, hopefully this video is a little bit helpful. I would recommend getting the full-size pedal harp, not a petite. I personally really like the 85 Concert Grand from Lion & Healy. I find their sound to be very bright and I find it projects really well over the orchestra. Harps are loud, but when you compare it against the entire orchestra with the brass, well, the strings aren't crazy loud, but like all together, things get very loud. It's hard to be heard as the harpist, and so I find the 85 to be very helpful in just projecting my sound. Another harp that I really like is the Style 30 from Lion & Healy. I find that one also sounds really great. I'm a little biased because I own an 85, and so I think 85 is the best. So these are 3 books that I highly recommend when you're starting out orchestra. Number 1 is Sarah Boland's Principal Harp book. The first one, it's red, and the reason why it's so helpful is she takes a lot of famous orchestral passages for the harp. They are excerpts used in auditions. I've basically used every single edit she's made. So helpful. She gives new fingerings, she writes in the enharmonics, she even writes in tips on how to play it more accurately. It's super great. One that I personally really loved was the Romeo and Juliet. This section right here, the way it's originally written is a pain to read, and so she rewrote it in a way that's a lot easier for a harpist's hands. Another great one is the Symphonie Fantastique. She has a lot of great notes on that. She also has a second version, same thing. It has some rewrites, it has some suggested fingerings. And the third book is this right here, Orchestral Harpist, again by Sarah Boland. This one also just has a ton of other excerpts that might be used in auditions. So those are the 3 books that I would recommend. If you're ever playing something and like it's hard to read or you find the fingerings don't work, you can always work with your teacher and try and find something. Maybe your teacher has their own markings, or I know online, if you like look it up, sometimes people sell their markings, and so there's so many resources out there. Sometimes composers will write things that are literally impossible on the harp. I've only ever really come across that when it's a newer composer and they're like writing a harp part for the first time and they don't really know much about the harp, and so then they start putting notes that literally don't exist. One of the composers at my university wrote a harp part for a beautiful symphony. They put a low, like the lowest C, they made it a natural, and then they made it a flat. And I had to tell them, like, I can't do that in the same measure. I'm really sorry. Don't be scared to adjust things here and there. As the harpist, unless you're like soloing, you're most likely just gonna be a flourish or a decoration or texture. It's okay if you need to change the notes just a little bit, because 9 times out of 10, it's not gonna make much of a difference to the people listening because they're probably not gonna hear you anyways. I would recommend listening to your music and finding the important parts. What is something that needs to be heard above the orchestra? And you can talk to the conductor about this. The conductor might have personal opinions on what they want to hear from the harp. If you're playing while the rest of the orchestra is playing with you, it probably won't matter if you drop a hand. So don't be scared to make your own personal edits. Think of what the composer intended you to sound like. My only caution is that as you adjust it, make sure it stays true to what the composer wanted it to sound like. I would recommend actually practicing your harp part. I would listen to the entire piece, and so you can just go on YouTube, look it up, and just listen to how it sounds. I would listen, following along with your music, seeing when you come in. The nice thing about orchestra music for harp is you have a lot of rests, and so you're usually not playing the whole time, which is nice. You get to relax, but also kind of stressful because then you're like, wait, what if I don't come in at the right time? So I would write in your cues, preferably before you get to rehearsal, but there have been many times where I just didn't have time. And the day of the rehearsal, we're rehearsing the piece and I had my pencil ready and I would write in the cues as we went. But either Anyway, doesn't matter when you do it, just write in cues, especially if you have a massive, massive long break of rest and you don't want to count like 200 measures. I hate counting. So I just write in my cues. I'm like, okay, this is where the violins sound kind of sparkly, and I just wait for that sound. I would write in all your pedal sets. This is extremely helpful because conductors, they'll like jump around in the music. And if you didn't write in your pedals, that can be really hard to, they'll be like, okay, let's start at rehearsal C. And you're like, I don't know my pedals for rehearsal C. So just write in your pedals ahead of time. It saves you a lot of stress. I don't like to practice my orchestra music a lot because I have so much solo rep that I'm trying to, handle. And so on top of that, adding orchestra stuff, that's just like more rep to add to your practice, and that can get overwhelming when you're working and going to school and all these things. Once you get your music, I would just right away spend like an hour and just learn all of the music. Get that music learned. Just learn it right when you get it, so then you don't have to like learn it later. Like to learn it right away, and then it's kind of with me, it's in my fingers. I don't have to practice it as much because I learned it, and I just am maintaining it, which is a lot easier than learning it. Get really used to counting.
I hate counting.
Because you're going to be counting a lot. Don't be scared to talk to the conductor about what they might want you to do. Orchestra is a lot more fun and less stressful when you're like in contact with the conductor. Because at least for me, I always kind of wonder and second guess myself. I'm like, am I doing it right? Is this like what the conductor wants? Just ask. There have been so many times where we're in a rehearsal and the conductor will just skip over every section where the harp is actually playing. And so I'll never ever know what it really feels like to be playing with the orchestra until like 2 rehearsals before the concert. Find out the tuning of your orchestra and just tune a little bit sharper. So if the orchestra tunes to 440, I would tune to 442. This is just something that I was always taught, and the reason why is the harp can sound kind of out of tune. While everyone else is playing at 440, us playing at 442 like makes us sound in tune, is what I've been told, and so take that or leave that. I don't know if that's like law. Always arrive a little early to your rehearsals and make sure you tune before you get to rehearsals because you do not want to be out of tune. You can ignore the dynamic markings most of the time in orchestra music. I have only been told once in my entire time doing orchestra. I've only been told once that I was too loud, and that was like the happiest day of my life. I was like, whoa, I was too loud. Because usually the harp is too quiet and the conductor's like, more harp, more harp. Your fingers are bleeding just trying to like get it loud enough. And so just be loud, be heard. Always have a tuning key ready. Always have an extra bag of strings. Had strings break on me on stage. Luckily, there's no more harp after my string broke, but it's stressful. Strings will break. I would invest in a nice case or covering so you can transport your harp along with a dolly. Makes your life so great. Always have a pencil with you during rehearsal. Another tip, excuse the hair clip on my head and my PJs, ignore that. Try and get the schedule from the conductor so you know what pieces they can be playing, because most likely you're not going to be playing in every single piece that they're going to rehearse that day. It's helpful if you know that, oh, okay, I'm only going to be needed after 2 o'clock. Don't leave your harp unattended in the rehearsal room for like a long period of time because accidents will happen, and this is what I mean. Excuse how like dusty my harp is, but like, do you see that? That was from a bassist. I was actually sitting at my harp talking to my friend. He like was walking over with his bass, knocked over a music stand that was in front from one of the violins, and it dinged my harp. So it's not anything major. Be careful, y'all. Don't leave your harp unattended. Things happen, so don't leave your harp unaccompanied. Watch it. Protect your baby. Yeah, and these are just some of the tips that I have for when you're doing orchestra. And if anyone has any other advice that they'd like to give, please comment down below. I want this to be like a nice space for harpists to give advice to each other. Orchestra is so much fun, and it can get boring counting a lot of rest.
I hate counting.
But if you make friends in the orchestra, or if you just enjoy the music, it just makes it so much fun. I love orchestra so much. I wish you luck. You got this. I'll see you in the next video.